Dewgong, Pokémon Red. How fast can we beat the game? And if you want a rules refresher, just check the description. This happy little sea lion, it was one that I was really excited for, but let's just get into it. First up, we're gonna take a look at the stats, and at first glance, there's nothing mind-blowing here, but believe it or not, guys, and whether you like it or not, this is what peak performance looks like. We got decent special at 95, and when you take that with a 90 HP and the 80 defense, that gives us some deceptive thickness. This is a thick little Dewgong here, and 70 speed, that's more than enough to not really have to worry about it for the entire playthrough outside of a few Pokemon. Now where this gets even better is the learn set. There's not a ton here, but when you start with Aurora Beam, that gives you 97 effective power with a really good topping right up front, and to supplement that, you have a 70 base power physical move and headbutt, and it just gives you the tools that you need. And if we take it over to the TMs, this is just your prototypical water type for the majority of Gen 1 Pokemon. There's no real coverage, you got all the water moves, all the ice moves, we do get Body Slam, but think about things like Bubble Beam early as we climb into the better moves like Surf, Ice Beam, Blizzard later. But I think the whole point here is that Dewgong really surprised me, but I'm gonna let the run speak for itself, and I don't really need an intro for Brock, but at this point it's sort of tradition, so after doing the very bare minimum, let's just take a look at the first gym. A very small critique that will persist throughout some major battles in the game is that we just will never have one-shot ranges, and it starts here. It usually takes multiple hits to take down Brock's Pokemon, but I do start out with a crit here, which is great, so that makes things a little bit faster, but Dewgong off to a fantastic start already. Now I'd like to talk about something that I didn't want to fit into the start of the video. Dewgong is the very last ice type that I have not ran in Generation 1, and sometime in the future I do plan on releasing like a comprehensive tier list rankings type video to talk about it to catch everybody up, but suffice it to say that after around 80 runs or so, ice is very comfortably in the second highest rated average run by type at this point, and I do think that Dewgong can raise that score just a little bit. I don't think anything can beat ghost type pound for pound since they only have 3 Pokemon and they're all really good. And I know if you're looking at this chart, the numbers are kind of weird, but I do keep track of a lot of statistics, and I think this is like an interesting dissection of data. Now I could talk about this all day, but even things like Psychic only being middle of the pack despite having the first and second place runs, it really, to me, it just shows how truly bad runs like Abra and Execute really are. But let's just move on from the chart. Don't think about it anymore. We'll come back to this in another video. Now in terms of ice water types specifically, there are 3 of them in the game. Cloyster currently sits at 12th, has a score of 94.25, pretty good run, and Lapras sits 2 spots down at 14th with a little over 93 out of 100 rating. Now despite the very clear similarities in these Pokemon, the big difference is that Cloyster has a really standard water learn set, it doesn't even learn Body Slam, and it really gets carried by having access to withdrawal for the badge boost, while Lapras just has a really deep learn set, and it basically gets every good move in the entire game outside of maybe Earthquake. But the common thread for these 2 Pokemon is that they are in the slow level up group. On the surface, Dewgong maybe looks like a weaker version of these Pokemon. It has no badge boosting moves, nothing really special, move pool's kind of shallow, but where it makes up the difference is by being in the medium fast level up group. And if you take away anything from this video, this is going to be a showcase of just how much the level up groups really matter. Now we've talked about it some, and sure, stats, moves, other factors do matter too, but it's not very often that we just get a really good direct comparison of level up groups, so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. In Mount Moon, I do have to pick up the rare candy because this is not a cross-gen run. Dewgong's pretty good, but not that good, and I am going to do one little itty-bitty battle against a hiker to get some experience, and this is going to help me in a couple of ways. First off, it does let me hit level 15 going into the Goldeen Junior Trainer, and this fight is a great introduction to talk about Headbutt. This is pretty much the first spot where Aurora Beam is not really going to cut it, and having Headbutt on the starting set comes in clutch. Now you can see that this battle doesn't really look great. It can actually be worse if the game goes God mode with move selection, supersonic, hurting yourself, maybe getting some tail whips put on you, increasing the damage that Peck's gonna do. It's not really a good fight. I didn't like this fight at all, but we do eventually get through. I'm gonna hit level 16 and I'm gonna go into Misty. The overarching theme to this battle is that everyone is going to be using normal moves. Now the positives here are that I have headbutt compared to her only having tackle, but it's a 2v1 and I'm at a massive level disadvantage. I ultimately decide just to chew through the Staryu, straight damage, don't worry about anything else. I get it down, now let's talk about the main course. And what you don't want to see, what you never want to see from Starmie is a crit. And just to kind of up my chances of making it to this battle, I am going to growl once to take minimal tackle damage. And from that point, you just start kind of butting the star with your head as you do. We've all been there. Now a flinch would be great, I don't see it, and this one is going it's pretty close, it's neck and neck. She does use a really late X defend, I get a crit, balance it out, and it all kind of comes down to this. Starmie finally lands a crit, but Dewgong musters up all of its strength and courage, survives at just 1 HP, and I'm able to take the battle on the next turn by the skin of my teeth. Access to Bubble Beam, pretty huge. Now in terms of base power, it's exactly the same as Aurora Beam, giving us two really solid 97 effective power moves to choose from, as well as a huge PP reserve to make sure that we don't have to keep healing at Poke Centers. So this does speed us up quite a good bit, and that's not even counting the experience we just got. For rival number 2, there is something kind of annoying with this fight. At this level, Aurora Beam cannot reliably one-shot the Pidgeotto, so it's gonna live, and here it just misses the sand attack, so any potential crisis is averted for now. Now at this point, it's just cleanup. I can one-shot the rest of the team, and you might be saying, hey, why would you choose Bulbasaur for the rivals team? And I hear you barking, big dog. Now let's get out of this battle, and we'll talk about that for a second. So 99% of the time with a good run, I'm just going to default to the Blastoise team. Exeggutor is extremely hard to one-shot in the late game, and it has Hypnosis, and in my opinion, it's like the worst Pokemon to deal with in the entire run. And then you got Blastoise, it's fairly tanky, and it has access to Blizzard, which is better coverage than any other starter. Now, I'm not sure if Dewgong would be able to one-shot Exeggutor, but I can tell you that I'm just never going to have a great answer for Gyarados, and throughout the entirety of starting this run, doing the blind playthrough up till now, the threat of a Razor Leaf from Venusaur from rival number 5 all the way up to the champion, it forces some pretty tight routing that you just would not get from the Charmander or the Squirtle team. Now I'm always down to discuss this. I love talking about Pokemon, I like talking about runs, but that's my personal thought behind it. Now if you pick the rival just based off of the starter, I think you'd lose a lot of nuance and just kind of rob yourself of a slightly harder challenge. Also, before I forget, we're at the game that has the single highest cluster of mandatory battles. You already know, Dewgong does great here outside of I think maybe one single Pokemon, so we're good here. And I would like to quickly say that I hope everyone's having a great end of the year holiday season. I'm trying to get to 20,000 subscribers, so if you're new, I'd appreciate the support. And that's pretty much all I have to say, other than I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch my videos. I know at this point in time you have the bigger channels, they're probably clogging up your feed with daily videos. They're trying to get that sweet ad revenue. Now I can't say I blame them, I'd probably do the same in their situation, but I'm just saying, the little guys, they often get pushed to the corner and everyone's out to watch their video. Everyone wants to ride that hog, if you know what I'm saying. So down on the SSN, I need Body Slam. There's no other way around it. And you would think this is for situations like we just seen with Misty, but it's actually for high special psychic types more than anything. I'm also going to pick up the Gentleman Candy because I can't skip candies. I need them all. And it's for an important event that's really about to pop up. But first, hey, rival number 3 is coming right up. The important thing here now is that I can finally one-shot the bird here, which means essentially it's no longer going to be a threat in the run, which is great. Now the rival teams from here on out after this, they have other worries. We kind of already touched on it a little bit, but outside of that, this one's pretty clean. I think we can get down to business, and we got some things to discuss real quick. So I think if you watch a lot of solo runs, it seems like everyone and their mom, it's so popular right now to hate on Surge until he's a problem. Now I think in yellow version, he's a brain dead gym leader that only has a single Pokemon and doesn't have good AI. But if you are weak to Lieutenant Surge in red and blue, you do have to put some thought into this fight. Now all I'm saying here is that it's really easy to jump on the bandwagon and call Surge your wife's boyfriend's gas station attendant when you're not weak to him. But look how fast that attitude changes when you get hit with a super effective skip Thunderbolt. Now I'm going on a slight little tangent here, but the long and short of what I'm trying to say is that Surge, for me in this run, is probably the worst fight. And that's why in the footage is probably already passed by now. I used all 3 of my rare candies to jump up to level 28, and let's just see how it goes. I guess 2 things here. First, I didn't use an intro, so that's kind of telling you how serious the battle is to me. And second is I can just kind of gun down his first 2 Pokemon in the street like the degenerates that they are, and we can move on to the end. Now, I mentioned Surge has good AI, that's the key here, and we're gonna see it go about as good as it can go for him. He's gonna go for back-to-back Thunderbolts, and our boy Dewgong, he's just so thick that he barely hangs on here with just 2 HP left. That means I can finish the job, and I promise you, even though this battle looked easy, remember I do like 3+ runs, but I promise I'm not trying to just be a contrarian for argument's sake. Surge is legitimately difficult in red and blue if you're weak to him. And I just want to give a little bit more insight to this fight before we move on, talk about the routing a little bit. I picked up 2 regular potions really early in the game for specific reasons. One was to heal in front of Misty and the other one was to heal in front of Surge. I intentionally skipped buying super potions just to save a little bit of time and really just because Dewgong is just that good. So I wasn't exactly full health in the Surge fight. I was missing 8 hit points, I guess you would say. That's another side tangent. If you guys see the term HP, what do you say, hit points or health points? I say hit points. It was really important in that fight to be as close to full as you could be. And I would also say that if Dewgong could learn Thunderbolt, we might be putting this thing in the God tier discussion, but I'll save that for later because now we need to talk about split data. And before we do, I need to just say this up front. When I do the blind run for these Pokemon and I maybe test out stuff a little bit, that's when I kind of decide what tier pace it's going to be racing against. And I only tell you that to set up what we're about to see. And I want you to sit down because we could be looking at something pretty special here. Now I'm going against a 94 out of 100 run, a really good top 10 run. I'm 99% sure that this is Sandslash's run. I did have a little bit of a slowdown at Brock, and then we had to do Nugget Bridge before Misty, but you can see that even as early as the Surge split, we already have a near 16-minute lead over a 94 overall run. So what's happening here? Or is anything happening at all? Only time will tell. A lot can change at this point. A Pokemon like Sandslash hits its stride later when it rushes Swords Dance, gets powerful moves like Earthquake and Rock Slide, and we just simply don't know right now if Dewgong can keep it up. But in this moment, Dewgong is kind of putting on a clinic, and we'll check in after we do rival number 6, but first, let's skip over Rock Tunnel. That's going to take us directly into the Rocket Hideout, and I go here first because there's no benefit of getting Ice Beam just yet. In fact, there's a detriment to it. If you use Aurora Beam in here now, you can save some PP because I will be learning Ice Beam after this, so this just kind of smooths things over. It made things feel like a better cohesive puzzle to put together. And speaking of our Celadon buy, we're here right now, and the only thing to note here is I'm not going to buy vitamins, I'm not picking up any high money items, and the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get Pokedoll for Mimic in the future, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to upgrade Aurora Beam with Ice Beam, and then we're going to head down to Erika. Now I brought up that chart earlier, and we've seen that ice types have some of the best average runs in the entire game, and remember that's with Jinx's subpar score bringing it down. And I just can't state enough how strong Stab, Ice Beams, and Blizzards are. And you can see here, I'm slicing down Erika's entire team with all one hits. It's pretty much just a little bump in the road, and I think it's already time to move on. In Pokemon Tower, we're going to see the runs first Gyarados. Now since we out level and our neutral ice damage hits so hard at this point, it's not bad, but the fact that it can even survive is pretty telling. But outside of that, and just to kind of keep hammering on the point, Ice Beams can also one-shot the Ghastlies. They're really strong, and it makes this part of the game pretty carefree. In the Safari Zone, there's a couple of things I need to talk about too. First is that I do want 2 Carbos for this run, and I decided to pick them up in the overworld. I'm gonna get this one, and then later I'm gonna grab the one in Silph, and that's gonna be it. Now this is also where I'm gonna get access to Surf, and just like after Misty, now we've hit another power spike. Now we have 2 142 effective power moves in the learn set, so we're pretty strong at this moment. and we're gonna ride that wave all the way into Silph. And normally Pokemon like to hold off on these challenges, but Dewgong is kind of up for the task. I do have a very slight little bit of extra errands that I need to do, and the first order of business is I gotta go up to the 10th floor. I already talked about the Carbos, and I'm also gonna get the rare candy, and I'm also gonna pick up one optional battle. This is exactly like the Palkia video where I forgot to battle the 5th floor juggler. That was the plan, and before I realized it, I was already too far gone, so I end up just fighting this little scientist here, get the experience I need, and we can move on to rival number 5. I don't even need to introduce this fight. Hitting level 38 does wonders for it, and we can just start this one off with a bang. Pidgeot no longer a threat, it's irrelevant, we can just knock it out of the sky, and second is gonna come in Gyarados. But I gotta say, you've already seen Dewgong survive a couple of hits here and there on 1 HP, 2 HP. Dewgong, for me, feels like one of the luckiest runs I've ever done. What was supposed to be a 3-turn knockout turns into a turn 1 crit, into a freeze, and I don't even have to worry about it. Now Growlithe, whatever, get him out of here. But Alakazam will outspeed us. Now this gives it the chance to do some heavy damage, and we do get confused here, we kind of just shrug it off, and the battle's all gonna come down to this. I don't hit myself, get off the Ice Beam, but you can see it doesn't one-shot. Venusaur uses Razor Leaf here, gives us the battle for free pretty much, but remember, if the AI decided to use Razor Leaf at any point, it's a reset, but thankfully, this is pretty much the only time that you have to take the risk in this run. And as you just seen, there are like 3 little problems sprinkled within the rival teams from here on out. We got lucky this time. Dewgong has been a pretty lucky Pokemon so far, but we don't want to keep relying on luck. And if we want to finish this run strong, I think we just need to get ready for next time. And I'm going to hold off on Sabrina for now, and we're going to transition down to Koga's gym. And I feel like I've probably highlighted the first mandatory juggler more times than any minor trainer in the entire game. And this kind of tells you why I'm not exactly ready for Sabrina just yet, because I can't even one-shot the Drowsies. There's not much risk during this battle, you're not gonna lose, but it's just a little bit slow, and it kind of highlights one of the areas that Dewgong falls short, that a lot of Pokemon fall short really. I think if we had a little bit more attack, maybe 5-10 more attack, or had access to a stronger move like Earthquake, you could significantly speed up this battle and a couple of other battles, but that's about all I gotta say about that. For Koga, I'm just gonna go straight Surf. It's probably your best option here. And you might have noticed that Growl is still on the learn set. Now I feel like I just had this conversation in the Ampharos video, but the long and short is that Dewgong pretty much just needs 3 moves for the majority of the game. And I guess there's some edge case that you could use Growl on the Weezing if you're like gonna predict a turn 1 self-destruct. But I do get poisoned here. It wastes just a little bit of my time, but overall, there just really isn't that much interesting happening here in this little mid game. And now, my friends, it's time to take that brisk swim down to Cinnabar. It's that time of the week. I'm envisioning the warm sun beating down on my pale body and me instantly regretting it. And the only thing that really happens in this part of the game is that I'm gonna pick up Blizzard. And if you guys have never experienced the true power of a stab Blizzard, you're missing out. I think there is absolutely zero reason to ever skip this move on an ice type, but what I can skip out on is finding out if TM28 is actually
Tombstoner, brother,
or not, because I don't know if we'll ever get the answer, but let's move on to Blaine. Commentary on this one, pretty short. I go straight Surf. He's weak to Surf. Arcanine can maybe survive one, but at the end, ultimately doesn't matter. I think we can move on. Afterwards, I am going to pick up Mimic. Now that I think about it, I probably could have just mentioned this in passing during the Sabrina fight. And if I put all of this into the video, it's just going to be a lot longer and just cause me more work than it needs to. But we'll see how editing Matt feels in the future. If all this is in here, cool. Now this fight, not really my favorite. I can body slam to get past the Kadabra just fine. I do pick up a little crit ski on the Mr. Mime, knock it out in one hit. But Venomoth is where I ran into some trouble in practice. Like here, we get paralyzed and no one wants to be paralyzed going into Alakazam. Hey, but it is what it is. Now I end up going for body slam even though it has reflect set up. I eventually kind of swap over. Surf does enough damage. After going back and forth for a few turns, we eventually get it down. And that means we have 7 badges. Now before we hop directly into Giovanni, I do have to mention that I'm picking up one optional battle. There's one more left in the game. There's a cool trainer that has a Sandslash and Dugtrio. They're both weak to ice and water, so it's just a really quick battle, gives a lot of experience. It doesn't even give a lot of experience, it just gives the perfect amount of experience. And now we can just hop into Giovanni. And truth be told, I'm probably going to spend more time talking about the trainer that we just talked about than Giovanni. I go straight Surf. I wouldn't dare say the other move. I don't try to say Ice Beam a lot. I know you guys like it when I say Ice Beam a lot, but we're just going straight Surf. Surf has more PP, therefore I can just spam it a little bit cleaner, and that's really the only commentary for this fight. Let's get out of it. We got all 8 badges. Now this is the part of the game after the battle where Dewgong is going to pop the rest of the rare candies. Remember, I popped 3 to beat Surge pretty cleanly, and by clean I mean I was only at 2 HP, but we won. And now I'm going to invest the rest of the candies. That is going to get us to level 54, and now we can hop into rival number 6. You don't really need the candies for this fight specifically, and I guess I should mention I did learn Blizzard over Growl finally, but the main reason to use the candies was just because it was the most efficient spot. I battled the extra trainer, and it just put us in the perfect range to level up at the end, and it was efficient, alright? And we can also just efficiently kind of mow down the first 2 Pokemon in rival number 6. Don't really have to worry about it. Now, the Gyarados is going to come out, but we use all the candies, and with that sort of level advantage, we can easily 2-shot the Water Snake, get it out of there. Growlithe doesn't stand a chance. I'm probably just going to edit him out in the future. I probably forget to, but I should really do that. And Alakazam, like always, going to outspeed us. And it's going to turn 1 Psychic Crit. But do you guys think Dewgong goes down? No. We're down in the red health, and for all intents and purposes, I should have lost this battle. But Pokemon Red being Pokemon Red, Alakazam just goes for Reflect. Eventually it goes for Recover, and after some back and forth, despite getting turn 1 crit, I'm able to actually sneak past, but there's no way that I'll make it past the Venusaur as well, right? Well, you would be wrong, because that's why we got Blizzard, baby. It's a guaranteed one-shot. There ain't no razor sharp leaves touching my boy Dewgong today, and we take the victory. So now I would like to talk about split data, and just before we talk about split data, I need you guys to brace yourself, because we've already seen that it was already getting out of hand at the Surge split. And remember, let's just go ahead and pull it up. I love surprises as much as the next guy, but hey, we're on a time limit here. We got to get this going. Anyway, look, we were 16 minutes ahead at the Surge split. Remember that the mid-game routing can be different for Pokemon, so the main important splits for me is the 3rd gym, the Surge split, and the Giovanni split. And you can see here that Dewgong sunk its teeth into this 94 out of 100 pace, and it has completely and utterly destroyed it. Entering the Elite Four, I have a 21 minute and 5 second lead, which is absurd. And at this point, I haven't said this in a long time. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna look real quick. When did I do the Clefairy video? It's been like 7 months, before my kid was even born. And we're going back to the Clefable video. And once again, I'll kind of reiterate a point that I said in that video. What are we looking at here? Like, what is this Pokemon, and why is it so good? Like, why is this time right now so good? Now, granted, we still have to go through the Elite Four, but we are absolutely crushing everything in sight. If Dewgong has a fast enough Elite Four, it's possible. Something I never thought would be possible outside of Mewtwo is that we might get another sub 2 hour in-game time run. But I don't want to gush too long. Dewgong doesn't have a lot to fear in the Elite Four, but it also doesn't have an answer for everything in the Elite Four. So there's a give and take to it. And without further ado, I'm anxious to see what this little Dewgong can do in the Elite Four. So let's fade to black and let's see how it goes. For me, I think Lorelei is like the most intricate battle in the run. Takes a lot of planning and a lot of thought. It can go either way, and it can be really easy or really tedious. Now, if you want it to be the best case scenario, you would just have the enemy Dewgong use like Growl like 2 or 3 turns in a row while you just slowly chip it down. But you have to be aware of your PP here. You cannot waste too many serves, and keep in mind that Dewgong has rest. So there are some attempts that you can do where you'll start spamming slamming down resisted moves, slowly chipping away at it. It'll use rest. You can't kill it in time. It wakes up, uses rest again, and it starts to really drain you. Now here, all things considered, I get a pretty good attempt. You do see a rest, and we do get a single growl, so better than most, but it's still, it's not the best. Now Cloyster doesn't have very high HP. With one more growl from the Dewgong, I would have been able to two-shot it, but here it hangs on. It gets like a mythical 5-turn crit spot cannon, so good for you, Cloyster, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't matter that much. Now Slowbro, this is why we have Mimic on the set. You already know I'm going to take Amnesia, I'm going to set up, and that's just going to make me hit infinitely harder. Now what's annoying with Slowbro is a lot of times it loves to use Amnesia too, which means it's absurdly tanky by the time I get done. But Slowbro, my favorite Pokemon, he is a bro. He does toss us a couple of more growls, makes us a little bit stronger, and we go into the Jinx with 703 special. So resistances and types, they just don't really even matter anymore. I can just Ice Beam the Jinx, one-shot it. Lapras can come in. Now I can two-shot it, and I'm gonna comfortably win here, but let me just say that it has Body Slam, it can paralyze you, it has Confuse Ray. So definitely not an easy fight, but we get through on the very first time. That's exactly what I wanna see. Now, last time I did a video, I just skipped Bruno. Today I'm going to talk about Bruno, and you might think that this is like foreshadowing some secret Machamp submission crit and Bruno finally taking the prize, and that's not the case. I pretty much just go straight Ice Beam here. I'm even going to get a freeze on the Machamp just to make things a little bit easier, but it's an easy two-shot. And I go Ice Beam here because if I went straight Surf and you use an Elixir, it only restores 10 power points, and Surf has 15 total, so I just wanted to have Surf. It really doesn't matter, honestly. It's Bruno, he's dead. Let's move on to Agatha. Uh-oh, guys, Agatha has an intro. What does that mean? Well, it usually means like what it always means. We don't have a great answer for the ghost, and when you have like statuses and sleep and all that kind of stuff on the table, sometimes things can go wrong. Now, this fight was the huge concession for the run because I don't even know what level Dewgong would have to be to like one-shot the Gengars, but Blizzard hits so hard, just 180 raw effective power with just stab. It just hits like a truck. Now I can two-shot anything in this fight. And the start of the fight looks kind of rough. It looks good, then it goes to rough. I get put to sleep very briefly, but long enough to get a Dream Eater took out of me, and I recovered in the mid-battle here. And I thought that I was gonna get past this on the very first try, but Agatha had other plans. I'm fighting back, and I'm thinking I have a chance. I hit the Blizzard, and keep in mind, guys, I'm one little tiny hit away, one Blizzard away from knocking this Gengar out and taking it on the very first attempt, but I get confused. I hurt myself. Toxic gets put on me, but I'm still fighting here, and through the confusion, through the poison, Dewgong has his eyes set right on the ghost type, and he lets a Blizzard loose, and I lied when I said I can two-shot anything because it's a range, and this Gengar's barely gonna live with a sliver of health. And at this point, Dewgong's luck runs out, and I'm gonna go down for the very, very first reset of this run. And there's really, on the winning attempt, there's not much commentary to say. Like I said, 8 out of 10 times, I'm gonna two-shot that last Gengar, and I'm gonna win that battle. This isn't as bad as you would see, like in my head, when I think of awful Agatha fights, I think of Eevee or Krabby specifically comes to mind. God, that Krabby, oh, don't even think about that. But the point is, Dewgong hits hard enough to make this like sure, there's RNG, people call it the Agatha lottery for a reason, but when you hit so hard that you can two-shot or even one-shot some of the Pokemon, you really minimize that risk, and that's why I'm gonna make it through on the second attempt here. So Dewgong, not a perfect run, we have a slight blemish, and now let's just move on to Lance. So we're looking at like our 4th Gyarados of the run or something like that. It's up front, doesn't really matter, but I'm gonna get pretty much the best case scenario here. I can't heap praises enough on a stab Blizzard. It's so strong, and at level 58, it is enough to two-shot the Gyarados outright, and we get the perfect set of events. I hit the Blizzard, take it down to half health, I take a Leer to give myself a little badge boosty, and then I can knock it out on the subsequent Blizzard. Now from here on out, I don't need Blizzard to hit anymore. I can just swap over to Ice Beam for the dragons. I can stay on Ice Beam just for the Aerodactyl because it doesn't matter. Now I can get hit by the Aerodactyl, but like I've already said lots of times, we're a pretty thick little sea lion. Doesn't really matter, we can shrug it off and we can just sweep through this fight. Not much to say here. The only thing left to talk about is the last battle of the run. Pidgeotto's up first. It's irrelevant. We've already made this point. One shot, take it out. Now here I make a slightly lengthier Alakazam play. I've done this battle a lot. I know with Gyarados coming up, I know with potential Razor Leaf at the end, and the fact that I don't outspeed Alakazam, the safer play is to always just mimic recover so that you can kind of get back on your feet and don't have to risk a reset later. Now I'll talk about the drawbacks of this later, or I probably won't even talk about it because it's not really relevant to the run, but I almost get the one shot on the Alakazam with a Blizzard crit. I do get the freeze proc, but it barely hangs on. I'm surprised the rival didn't use a full restore here, but I get past it. And then next up, hey, we could just go through this right on like butter. Double weak to Surf, you already know what's gonna happen. And then we have Gyarados. And for the second time in this battle, and I think for like the fourth or fifth time in the run as a whole, I'm gonna get another freeze proc. So Dewgong, like I said, surviving at 1 HP, 2 HP, getting all the freeze procs. It's just getting every single thing that it wants. I'm gonna hit it once again. Now we're cruising. We got Arcanine up next. Weak to Surf. You've been a good boy, but I gotta put you down. I take him out back, and then finally, what does that Blizzard do? That's the question on everybody's mind. What does Blizzard do? And I'll tell you what it does. It one-shots the fat frog, puts him back on the lily pad in the water, and that means Dewgong finishes the run. Now I gotta tell you guys, look at the score. 2 hours and 31 seconds flat. This time is so ridiculously incredible that I don't really know what to say about it. I knew this run was gonna be pretty good when I was practicing, and I was already at like, I don't know, top 5 range in my times already. And I was like, like why is this Pokemon so good? But here we are with the final result. And let me just say that if I didn't even need Recover in the champion fight. If I didn't use Mimic, maybe if Koga didn't poison me, and you already know, yada, yada, yada. We could go through the whole game frame by frame and be like, well, if this didn't happen and this didn't happen and this didn't happen, I'd have a 1 hour and 30 minute time, but I don't care about that. So close to a sub 2 hour time, but this puts Dewgong decisively really far ahead in second place. And I never thought Alakazam would be dethroned, and I'll probably end up redoing that run because we're gonna have some tier list shakeups. I want to do some different stuff, but for now, I want Dewgong to have everybody's support. It is a remarkable Pokemon, and it's crazy that this Pokemon can be built so similarly to like Cloyster or Lapras or something like that. And I guess you could even maybe lump Starmie into this, even though it's not exactly a water ice type. But if you just put a Pokemon that has good stats, pretty decent moves, and you just slap the medium fast, or God forbid you go crazy and slap the medium slow level up group on it, the outcome is tremendous. I'm very happy with this, and that's really all I gotta say. Hey, if you made it this far, you're a real one. I've been really, I don't know, I've been kind of going off. I had my morning coffee and I had some little free time today, so I've just been off the top, just tossing out whatever I want to say, and I hope it's made for an entertaining video. But you're a real one if you listen to this right now. Drop that down below. I do appreciate it. Special shout out to my channel members and Patreons. The support means a lot. And on our next video, I'm going to redo Mewtwo, which is going to pretty much redo the entire tier list, and I'm going to redo a lot of the other runs. So Alakazam will get its shot to reclaim the title. Just because a run's 2 years old and a new run passes it doesn't mean that it's just dead in the water. So Dewgong for now, great run. I honestly can't believe it. I can't believe it so much that as soon as I got done with this run, I just thought about it for so long. I was like, man, this run's fast. I don't want to ramble too long. Have a great holiday season, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.